Let me be honest with you for a second. You probably already believe in God. That's not the issue. The issue is that you've been trying to run your life on your own terms while asking God to bless the direction you already chose. And I'm not saying that to call you out. I'm saying it because I've been there, and most people have been there too. You wake up, you check your phone, you scroll through everything everyone else is doing, and by the time you even think about God, your mind is already somewhere else, already anxious, already comparing, already behind. And then you wonder why peace feels so far away, why nothing feels like it's falling into place even though you're doing everything you can. Here's what nobody really explains. There's a difference between believing in God and actually putting Him first. Believing is something you carry in your heart. Putting Him first is something you carry in your decisions, in your mornings, in the way you respond when life hits hard. And when you make that shift, when you actually move God from the background to the front of everything, things start to change. Not in some magical, overnight kind of way, but in a real, deep, consistent way that rewires how you experience life. So let me walk you through 7 things that actually change when you put God first. And I'm not talking about religion, I'm talking about relationship. Real Christ-first living that touches every area of your life. Number 1. You stop chasing clarity and it starts finding you. Right now, you might feel like you're standing at a crossroads every other week. Should I take this job? Should I stay in this relationship? Should I move? Should I wait? And the more you think about it, the more tangled everything gets. That's because you're trying to figure out your whole life using only your own understanding. And your understanding, as sharp as it might be, has limits. But when you put God first, something shifts in the way you see. You stop demanding all the answers up front and you start trusting the next step. You begin giving God the first moments of your day, not because it's a rule, but because you realize that when He leads your morning, your whole day moves differently. The noise gets quieter, the confusion begins to settle, and instead of forcing your way through decisions, you start sensing direction. It's not that life suddenly becomes simple, it's that your mind becomes clear enough to handle the complexity. And that clarity, it doesn't come from trying harder, it comes from surrendering first. Number 2. You stop carrying weight that was never yours to hold. Let me ask you something. How many things are you worrying about right now that you literally cannot control? The answer is probably more than you want to admit. And that weight, it's been sitting on your chest, keeping you up at night, making you replay conversations, outcomes, worst-case scenarios over and over again. When you put God first, you don't suddenly stop caring, but you do stop carrying. You begin to hand things over, not once, but daily, sometimes hourly, because worry has a way of sneaking back in, and your job isn't to pretend it doesn't exist. Your job is to redirect it every single time. You start praying not just when you're desperate, but when you're calm. Not just when the storm hits, but when the sky is still clear. And over time, something beautiful happens. The things that used to consume your thoughts begin to lose their grip. You're not walking around pretending everything is fine. You're walking around knowing that even when it's not fine, God is still in control. And that changes the way your entire nervous system responds to pressure. Number 3. You start making decisions that don't cost you your peace. Think about how many times you've made a decision and regretted it within days. Maybe you said yes to something too fast. Maybe you walked into a situation because your emotions were loud and your spirit was quiet. That's what happens when your feelings are leading and your faith is following. But when God is first, the order flips. You start pausing before reacting. You start asking better questions. Not just what do I want, but what is wise. Not just what feels good right now, but what's going to be good for me 6 months from now, a year from now. You become the kind of person who doesn't need to have everything figured out before you move, but you also don't move just because you're anxious. You learn to sit in the tension, to wait without panicking. And that patience, that Christ-guided patience, it protects you from doors you were never supposed to walk through. And that's the thing about patience. It doesn't just protect your decisions, it starts to reshape your relationships too. Because the same way you used to rush into choices, you probably rushed into connections. You let people into your life based on how they made you feel in the moment, not based on where they were leading you. And that's where the next shift happens. Number 4, the people around you start to change. And I don't mean they change who they are. I mean, your circle begins to shift because you are changing. When you put God first, you start to notice things you used to ignore. You realize that some friendships only exist because of convenience. Some relationships survive only because you keep lowering your standards to make them work. And some people, no matter how much history you share, are pulling you in a direction that's taking you further from who God is calling you to be. That's a hard truth. Nobody wants to hear it. But when God becomes your foundation, you stop tolerating what He's asking you to release. And that doesn't mean you become cold or judgmental. It actually means the opposite. You become more loving, more forgiving, more patient with people. But you also become more honest about what you allow to stay close to you. Some people will celebrate your growth. They'll encourage you, challenge you, pray with you. Those are the ones God is positioning around you. But others will feel uncomfortable. They'll say you've changed, and they'll mean it as an insult. And when that happens, you have to trust that God is not removing people to punish you. He's making room for what actually fits the life He's building for you. Let the wrong ones leave. The right ones won't need to be convinced to stay. Number 5. You stop building your identity on things that can be taken from you. Be honest with yourself for a second. Where does your confidence come from right now? Is it your job title, your appearance? How many people validate you online? How well your life looks compared to someone else's? Because if your identity is built on any of those things, you're standing on something that can shift at any moment. A job can disappear. People can walk away. Social media can go quiet. And when that happens, if that's where your worth lives, you crumble. Not because you're weak, but because you built on the wrong foundation. When you put God first, your identity begins to anchor itself in something that doesn't move. You start to understand that you are not what you produce. You are not what people say about you. You are not your worst mistake, and you are not your greatest achievement. You are someone created with purpose, on purpose, and no opinion and no failure and no season of life can rewrite that. This kind of confidence doesn't shout, it doesn't perform, it doesn't need to prove anything. It's steady, it's grounded, and it holds you together in moments when everything around you feels like it's falling apart. You stop waking up asking, "Am I enough?" and you start waking up knowing that the one who made you already settled that question before you were born. Number 6. Discipline stops being something you force and becomes something you build. Here's something most people don't expect when they start putting God first. Their habits begin to change without them even trying that hard. And I don't mean it happens by magic. I mean that when your foundation shifts, your behavior naturally follows. You start waking up earlier, not because someone told you to, but because you actually want that time with God before the world starts talking. You start being more intentional with how you spend your energy, your money, your attention. Things that used to consume hours of your day, scrolling, overthinking, numbing out, they start to lose their appeal, not all at once, but slowly, consistently, you start choosing differently. And that discipline, it doesn't stay in your spiritual life. It bleeds into everything. Your work gets sharper, your goals get clearer, your follow-through gets stronger. You stop being someone who makes plans and never executes. You become someone who shows up, even on the days when motivation is nowhere to be found. Because here's the secret nobody talks about. Motivation comes and goes, but discipline rooted in purpose stays with you through every season. And when God is the reason you keep showing up, quitting stops being an option. You might stumble, you might have slow weeks, but you don't stop. You keep building, one day at a time, because you know it's not just about you anymore. And when you realize it's not just about you anymore, something deeper starts to unlock. Because up until this point, every change we've talked about has been internal. Your clarity, your peace, your relationships, your identity, your discipline, all of it reshapes the way you function on the inside. But this last shift, this one changes the way you see everything on the outside. Number 7, your perspective on life completely transforms. Before putting God first, life feels like a series of random events. Some good, some bad, most of them out of your control. And when the bad ones stack up, it feels personal. It feels like the universe is working against you. You start asking questions like, why me? Why now? Why does this keep happening? And those questions, when they go unanswered, they turn into bitterness. They turn into hopelessness. They make you feel like no matter what you do, nothing ever really works out. But when God is at the center of your life, you begin to see things differently. Not because the pain goes away, not because everything suddenly makes sense, but because you start to trust that there is a hand behind the scenes arranging things you cannot see yet. The delay that frustrated you starts to look like protection. The closed door that broke your heart starts to feel like redirection. The season of silence that made you feel forgotten starts to reveal itself as preparation. You stop viewing your life as a collection of problems and you start viewing it as a process. A Christ-driven process that's shaping you, refining you, and positioning you for things that your current self wouldn't even be able to handle. And I'll be real with you, this is the hardest shift of all 7, because it requires you to trust God in the middle of pain, not just after it's over. It means looking at a situation that makes no sense and still saying, I believe there's purpose in this. That's not easy, but it's the most powerful place you can stand. Because when your perspective changes, your reactions change. When your reactions change, your outcomes change. And when your outcomes change, your entire life starts to look like something only God could have built. Think about it. You went from being overwhelmed to walking in clarity, from carrying everything alone to releasing it daily into the hands of someone bigger than your problems, from making impulsive decisions to moving with wisdom and patience. From holding on to people who were draining you to trusting God with who stays and who goes. From building your worth on what people think to anchoring it in something that never shifts. From struggling with discipline to becoming someone who shows up every single day with intention. And from seeing life as a random mess to recognizing that every single chapter, even the painful ones, has meaning. That's not a small transformation. That's a complete rewiring of how you live. And here's what I want you to hear more than anything else. You don't have to wait until your life is together to put God first. You don't have to clean yourself up, fix your habits, or get to some perfect place before you make this shift. You can start right now, exactly as you are, with the mess, the doubts, the fear, all of it. God is not waiting for a better version of you. He's waiting for the real one to show up and say, I'm done doing this on my own. Matthew 6:33 says, Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. That's not a suggestion, that's a promise. And it doesn't say seek him after you've exhausted every other option. It says seek him first, before the plan, before the backup plan, before the fear convinces you to go another direction. First. So if this hits something inside of you today, I want you to do something about it. Don't just watch this and move on. Comment below and write, God, I choose you first. Say it like you mean it. And share this with someone who's been trying to do life on their own and needs to hear that there's another way. Someone who's been carrying too much for too long and just needs to be reminded that they were never meant to carry it alone. Because when God is first, you are not falling behind. You are not missing out. You are not being forgotten. You are being positioned exactly where you need to be. Exactly when you need to be there. And that, my friend, changes everything.